Hi everybody, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room. Hope you're doing well. Happy Saturday. I had a comment, read a comment from a user about the topic of vision, and I thought that it would be interesting to revisit the topic a little bit. I've done videos about the topic of vision before in relation to type, but it's always good to revisit the topic also because it's possible that some people may not have watched the other videos and all that. So essentially the question that our viewer, whose username is Darknecht, I don't know how to pronounce it, so apologies. Question that he was asking, or she was asking, was if I, meaning him, have a vision, or someone has a vision, is it more likely that I am, or the person is, an INFJ? So the person is assuming that they are a feeler. They're not questioning this, so no need for us to question it either. But person seems to identify a lot with a number of INFP traits, and so is confused because the questioning is basically, well, I identify a lot with INFP traits, perhaps with, FI and that kind of thing. And yet at the same time, I'm pretty sure that I have a strong vision. So does that mean that I must be an INFJ? So the answer is obviously no. It by no means shows that you are an INFJ. And so we're going to try and look at the reasons why the inference isn't valid. So if we look at the constellation of reasons why this inference is often made, one of the main reasons will be that whenever we hear the word vision, we think of introverted intuition. We don't think of any other function nearly as much as introverted intuition. So NI is like the function of vision. You have a vision, you see into the future, you're carried toward the future, you're able to visualize this image that you're projected towards, that kind of thing. And in a lot of movies and a lot of animes and a lot of books, we're often able to type characters based on whether or not they lead their lives kind of like day to day. They don't really have a purpose, they don't really have a vision, leading us to assume that maybe they're, let's say, P types or something like that, whereas someone is slightly more tunnely in their approach. It becomes more tempting to think of J types, and especially of NI users, whether dominant or auxiliary. The thing is, I don't think anything about this is wrong per se, but you just have to be a little bit careful with how you manipulate the word vision and what you put behind the word vision, because it's a fact that in our vocabulary these days, when it comes to typology, vision is associated with NI. So we think vision, we think NI. But the fact of the matter is that NI rightly embodies, I think, a certain kind of vision, not all kinds of vision. I don't know why the NI vision has become the preponderant one, the one that dominates the conversation in such a way that if somebody thinks they have a vision, then they must be an NI user of some sort, perhaps an NI dominant. But the reason why people are going to be tempted to think that is because the NI vision among all the other types of vision is the one that has won, in a way. It has won the first place in the discourse. That doesn't mean that there are not other possible visions that are not mainly engineered by NI. To give you an example, think about a visionary scientist, right? Think about a number of visionary scientists. I think you will be inclined to agree with me that if I said to you, Leonardo, visionary scientist, Galileo, visionary scientist, Copernicus, visionary scientist, Euclid, visionary scientist, and let's say the rather well-known Albert Einstein, right? Visionary scientist. Now we have 5 scientists here, all admittedly visionaries. None of them are J-types. None of them are actually NI users. Of all the people that I've just mentioned, Copernicus and Leonardo are, predominantly seen as ENTPs, and whenever they're not seen as that, they're seen as INTPs. Euclid, Einstein, and some other person that I mentioned are seen as INTPs. So there you go, visionary scientist, visionary mind, no NI, or NI contributing to those people's thinking patterns, less, presumably a lot less than functions like NE, like TI, that kind of thing. So I think that example by itself is enough to kind of destroy the false notion that and vision means NI. It's just not true. If you want to grasp what is peculiar about the relationship between NI and vision, it's that often the NI user does not really know why. They don't really know why the vision that they have is so compelling for them. And it is so compelling for them that they do live their lives with an awareness of it. Now, it doesn't have to be a vision like, something revolutionary, like axiomatizing geometry, or, or any other invention by any number of visionaries. A vision can be something as simple. I was watching an interview of Arnold Schwarzenegger on YouTube yesterday about his great roles, about his career. I never looked into him that much, but I'd seen that pretty much everywhere on the internet he's seen as an INTJ, which is really interesting because maybe he doesn't have the kind of profile at first sight that would make you assume that he is an INTJ. I actually believe that he is after having watched that interview. It's a pretty long interview, so lots of opportunities to verify that. But the T is obvious. I don't want to, excavate the T side of things too much, but you will notice that for every role that he revisits when he's talking about his 70s, 80s, 90s movies, for every role, he's recalling his state of mind at the time, and he always says in the interview, "I did this because eventually I wanted to get there." And he interpreted every new role, every new opportunity to be in a movie as a further step towards that, right? The vision might have been something as prosaic as I want to be the most visible, highest paid actor in the industry, right? There's nothing magical about an NI vision. NI vision is not something that has a mysterious substance. What's mysterious is not the content of the vision. It can be something as simple, so to speak, as Schwarzenegger's vision. What is peculiar about it, and what is quite unique and quite recognizable, is that the possessor of NI, who has the vision, is very compelled towards it, and it tends to drive him or her. In the face of great adversity, they'll stick to it, okay? And secondly, they are doing this, and they will continue to do this, even if they probably will never be able to completely rationalize why they're doing it. That is to say, they have a vision that is carved into their minds, probably from an early age, and never admits of being called into question rationally. So if you have a very rational person to begin with who happens to be an NI user, you might not notice that the vision cannot be justified rationally because a lot of what he or she does will seem rational. But in fact, it's not rational. And that's probably the source of why a lot of NI users and great NI visionaries are so fascinating, and they're such great innovators. They call things into question. Nietzsche, Hegel, Marx, like they show you a worldview that is just so unlike what was there before that it can redefine the landscape of thought after that. But you have to keep in mind the reason why they were so willing to stick to it and come to a full articulation of the vision that seemed strange and might have encountered a lot of pushback at first because it was so strange. They stuck to it because they believed in it, even though it was probably very strange to them as well. But it doesn't matter, because that's just how NI works. Whatever your vision is, you're compelled towards it, even if you cannot fully understand it most of the time. And that's how you recognize you're an NI user, especially an NI dominant. If you are, let's say, an any user, and I think that any auxiliary and any dominance in many ways are just as visionary as in potential as NI users. There's no question. You can look at any field, science, literature, you'll find just as many NI users with great visions as NI users. So it's not a question of whether there is a vision and the quality of it, the changes it makes to the society or to the field. It's just that the NI will tend to consider a lot of different possibilities before it chooses to direct itself towards something a bit more unified. And if there is something that starts to look unified, it will constantly be reevaluated over time to check whether it is actually worth pursuing like this, and it might be updated. So the vision is not as tunnel-like and not as linear and tends to admit of modification because it is more subject to rational scrutiny. But for the same reason, it's not compelled, it doesn't compel the user with as much force as an NI vision. It's usually the NI vision is less enigmatic to the user himself or herself and less compelling because it can be placed under scrutiny more. And that is all that I have to say for now about it. So think about not the content of the vision, but about the kind of power that the vision exercises over the user. And in this case, you'll be able to identify most likely whether you're on the side of NI or on the side of any. All right, see you guys. Have a lovely Saturday evening and weekend.